Explosions rocked Doha, sending plumes of smoke through the city. Israel says it was a strike against the top leadership of Hamas. The Hamas team was engaged in negotiations with other officials in the Qatari capital. Moments after the news of explosion in Doha came, the Israeli military announced that it has carried out attacks targeting Hamas leaders. In a statement, the IDF says that prior to the strike, steps were taken to minimize harm to uninvolved civilians, including the use of precision weaponry and additional intelligence information. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel initiated it, Israel conducted it, and Israel takes full responsibility. Qatar condemned the action as cowardly and called it a flagrant violation of international law. Qatar, which has been a key mediator in efforts to broker a truce in Gaza, says Israeli strikes targeted the homes of several members of Hamas's political bureau residing in the Gulf country, where the militant group's senior leadership is based. Israeli officials claim the strike was aimed at top Hamas leaders, including Khalil al-Hayya, its exiled Gaza chief and top negotiator. Two Hamas sources told Reuters that Hamas officials in the ceasefire negotiating team survived the attack. Today's strikes, Israel's first attack on the Western-backed Gulf state, come less than 2 weeks after Israel's armed forces chief vowed to target the group's leaders based abroad. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned Israel's strikes on Qatar, calling them a flagrant violation of Doha's sovereignty, whereas Saudi Crown Prince has termed Israeli attack on Hamas in Qatar a criminal act. The U.S. Embassy says that it has seen reports of missile strikes occurring in Doha. The U.S. Embassy has instituted a shelter-in-place order for their citizens in Doha. U.S. citizens are advised to take shelter and monitor. Israel's far-right finance minister Bezalel Smotrich praised the targeting of Hamas leaders, including al-Hayya, its exiled Gaza chief and top negotiator. Most of Hamas's leadership in Gaza has been killed in the war that began on October 7, 2023, while the militant group's political leadership abroad has mostly been untouched. The U.S. Embassy in Qatar told citizens to take shelter. Mr. Giorgio Cafiero is a professor at the Georgetown University and CEO Gulf State Analytics. He is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Cafiero, thanks very much for your time. After this attack in Doha, what's the scope of the negotiations and the release of hostages? Have the stakes gone higher for Israel or for Hamas?
This attack today on Doha was an attack on the heart of the mediation efforts between Hamas and Israel. By waging this unprecedented military operation today, the Israelis killed the negotiations process. You know, one of the reasons why Qatar has served as an effective place for these negotiations and why the U.S. and other countries have appreciated Qatar hosting Hamas's political leadership is because Doha provided the Hamas officials with secure grounds. This type of security would not be possible if a country, let's say, such as Lebanon or Iran, were to host the Hamas leadership. But today we have learned that even in Qatar, the Hamas officials are not safe. So this begs the question, if they're not safe in Qatar, what country which would take them in could provide them security? I don't think there's any country that could at this point, which would have the political will to do so. Again, I repeat, this is a huge development that marks the death of the negotiations.
Mr. Cafiero, the U.S. has not commented on the strike, even though Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it was an independent decision and takes full responsibility. The strike happened when the talks were in progress on U.S. proposals. How do you think America will react in the long run?
That's a great question, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now. So the Israeli leadership, as you mentioned, stated that Israel carried out this operation independently, yet many experts seriously doubt that that's the case. Mindful of the U.S.'s role as Qatar's security guarantor, and again, I want to remind your viewers that U.S. CENTCOM's forward headquarters are based at the military base in Al Udeid, Qatar. So for good reason, people are making the assumption that this attack only took place because the U.S. gave Israel permission. Not to say the U.S. was necessarily pleased with it or coordinated it. I don't know about that. But I think there's good reason to assume that this was done with a green light from the Trump administration. If that's the case, that gives not only Qatar, but all of the GCC members good reason to question whether or not there's any value to the United States as a security guarantor. And the geopolitical ramifications here are going to be huge going forward.
Mr. Cafiero, lastly, can we expect any sort of retaliation or repercussions against Israel, especially from Arab countries that are friendly to Qatar or Qatar itself?
Well, I think we're going to see, and we already have seen, some Arab countries, including the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, come out with some very, with some powerfully worded messages. There's going to be a lot of angry rhetoric. I think we'll see these countries increase their lobbying efforts in Washington to try to convince the United States to rein in Israel. Beyond that, however, I'm not so sure that there's going to be much more action from Arab states. I don't think the Arab countries that have normalized relations with Israel would sever their formalized relations with Israel over this incident. Again, difficult to predict exactly what measures are going to take place, but I think it will mostly be rhetorical. But of course, time will tell.
Time will tell indeed. Mr. George Cafiero, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you.